Hey guys, how's it going? It's Rob, and I just want to talk to you guys before the video starts really quick. I'm back now. I'm back for good. I don't have like a definite uploading schedule quite yet, because I also have a job on top of school now. So, but I'm still gonna be able to push out videos as much as possible. I'm thinking, if not every other day, every other 2 days. And my videos are now going to be longer. I'm thinking at least 20 minutes every video. Maybe. It just, again, depends on how much time I have. But as you can tell, my videos are a lot higher quality now. And I'm pretty happy about that. It's great recording with a good setup now. I don't have to, have any more sketchy setups. I can sit in a chair at a desk with a computer now instead of having to find weird places to record. I have a good mic, and I bought some acoustic foam, so like this area is perfect for recording. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoy the video. Don't be too scared. Last night I went to a midnight screening of Princess Mononoke, which ended around 2:30 a.m. I had an offer to go over to a friend's house, but since he was busy packing to move to another city, I just decided to hoof it home. Thankfully, my city, at least on the weekends, have the subway running 24 hours, so I didn't have to wait in the cold to take what I could like to refer to as the drunk bus. Went rather smoothly. Train arrived shortly after I got underground, and I made my connection easy peasy. The issue started when I got off my stop. As I am walking to go up the steps, I hear a woman on the other side of the platform being really loud, easy to ignore. But then I kept hearing her say, "Miss? Miss?" I glanced because I was the only other female on the platform, but I didn't recognize her and kept rolling. I get to the top of the first flight of stairs, and she gets to the top of her stairs at the same time, and once again starts with, "Miss? Miss?" But she looked like she was looking forward towards the ticket booth, so I assumed she was having an issue with the cops, and I saw her on the platform, and she was trying to get someone to back her up. So I go through the turnstile and continue to the escalator. I get above ground, light a cigarette, and wait for the light to change. Just as I cross the street, the same woman comes out of the stairwell at the corner I just got to. Now for reference, my subway stop have entrances on the street, and on the street I live on. Out of habit, I don't go on the exit on my street because the walk to my house is a little too dark and desolate. So now I'm boned because I could go back down to the subway and come out on my street, but that doesn't present a better scenario. So I walk, and of course, she follows. She kept saying, "Miss, miss," asking for light, talking about some cop who wasn't anything, and that she didn't care that they took her baby, and now how she needed to go to work. I just kept pretending I couldn't hear her and kept walking. The guy who was walking in front of us at one point turned around because, duh, that didn't make her happy, and she gave a quick, "I'm not talking to man, I'm asking her." Another guy walks past us, and she asked the time, 3:08 a.m., which prompted the work comment. We get to where I usually turn up to get to my street. The guy in front turns and walks the opposite direction on the same street. Since where I would turn to gets dark where the local mechanic shop is, I decided to keep walking straight and hook around at the corner to my block. When I get to the corner and turn to my street, she's still on my heels. I'm now starting to really panic. There's absolutely no one around, and I can't keep walking further away from my house because it's so poorly lit and no one the fuck is around. As we round the corner, I hear her say, "There's the path mark. I knew I was close to home. I live right up there." The path mark, about a block and a half up the street. Hasn't been open in over a year, but it has a handy landmark, so I start to chalk it up to a creepy coincidence. I proceed to my house and toss the butt of my cigarette into the street, which she picks up and gives an actual sincere thank you. I get to my door, and she decides to sit on the steps of a neighborhood 2 doors down from me. I don't know my neighbors like that, but I know for damn sure she doesn't live there. That put me back in panic mode. Now in hindsight, I should have looped back around and gone to the subway, but I wasn't thinking clearly. My keys were in my pocket, but I wasn't holding on to the specific two that opened my door. I didn't want to fumble with them in case she was trying to break in. So I rang my doorbell to pretend I didn't live there and needed to be let in, and decided to wait her out. It took about 2 doorbell rings and 15 minutes of me looking at the window like I was waiting someone. I live alone, to open the door before she got up and started walking. Mind you, walking in the opposite direction of the path mark. I followed her in the reflection of my screen door until she was far enough away that I could get my keys out and get in the door because she could try whatever it was she was trying to do. I kept rechecking I had locked my doors, sat up in bed fully clothed, and cursing myself for misplacing my bat for the rest of the night. I don't live in the best neighborhood, but I've never had something like that happen. Nothing that scared me shitless. Needless to say, I really regret not having gone to the liquor store earlier in the day, because I seriously need a drink from then. So, crazy lady from the subway who followed me home, let's never meet again. I've been in so many situations I cannot believe have ended worse. For example, I grew up in a small town on the west coast, but moved to the DC area for college. My second year in the area, I moved close to the metro, and having been 21, this was a big deal. Now when I say close to the metro, I mean I was the last stop on the Orange Line in Vienna, and my apartment was a 5-minute walk away. You'd think being from a small town I'd be more hesitant, especially after my almost kidnapping. Another story for another time. But I was typically drunk after being with my girlfriend for a night out in Arlington. Now one night, I was taking the metro back. My girlfriend lived a few stops before me, so we rode together. We were goofing around and laughing. Typical recent 21-year-old drunk girl nonsense. I had noticed that a man had entered the metro at East Falls Church stop and didn't think anything of it. He had been looking over at us since he had arrived, but I figured it was because we were being loud. My girlfriends were roommates and got off at Dunloring Station, one stop from me, and I said goodbye and sat back, texting my boyfriend at the time, letting him know that I was almost home, even though he lived in Seattle at the time. Finally, we got to the Vienna Metro, the final stop on the Orange Line, and I got out. I wasn't the only one to get out, but that wasn't all of that surprising. What was surprising, that was the older man who had entered the train earlier at the East Falls Church stop, which is like 90% suburbs, had been following me since I'd exited the train and was walking in the dark toward my apartment complex. I didn't panic until I jumped the fence down a route not typical to enter my apartment complex. I noticed that someone had followed me, and the area was recently being developed, so it was dark and all dirt and lumber. Stupid move on my part, but this is my normal way home. I started to walk quickly and heard him start saying, "Hey, wait." I started running and heard him following me, still yelling for me to wait up and slow down. Finally, I saw my building and I hauled butt, digging through my purse for my keys to get inside. At this point, he'd caught up to me and was on the curb asking me to let him in because, of course, he forgot his keys also. I noped the shit out of there and found my keys and let myself in, slamming the door shut. I ran upstairs, hearing him hit the door, but then nothing once I got inside my apartment, tearing into my roommate's room and crying in her bed. I never heard anything bad that happened that night and never met the man again, but I can honestly say he scared the ever-living shit out of me, and I never walked home from the metro alone again. Mr. Drunk Creep, let's not meet. This happened a year ago, when I was working as a pizza deliverer. I often worked late at night, and despite other women being sexually harassed on the job every now and then, I never felt very nervous when delivering. Anyways, this happened at about 11 p.m. I was delivering to a house, and as I arrive, I park out the front. Now there are two things you should know from here. 1, the pizza's on the passenger side, and 2, this is an Australian derelict suburb. So I get out of the car and immediately notice this 20-something-year-old guy standing on the opposite side of the road facing me. This is a derelict area, and with me being rushed, I thought nothing of it, as it's not too uncommon to see derelicts hanging around the street. But as I started walking around the car to the passenger side, I found him behind me. He asked me what time it was, and I said it was 11-ish. This still didn't have me on edge, as I was used to this kind of stuff. As I was opening the door to get the pizza, a jolt of suspicion came over me, as I noticed he was still behind me, not saying anything. Looking back at it now, I find it unnerving at how subtle this feeling was, and how close I was to ignoring it, but I'm glad I didn't. I, while trying to act nonchalant, quickly closed the passenger door, walked around to the driver's side, hopped in, locked the door, turned on the car, and put it in drive. I felt like I was being overly cautious, but sure enough, he pops around to my side of the car. At this point, I feel pretty safe, and I dare say, proud in my decision-making. So I cracked the window to get the bottom of this. Guy, do you have the time on you? Second time he asked this. Me, it's 11 o'clock. Awkward pause. Guy, can you give me a lift? I need to go to my friend's house, and it's where you were delivering. What? Me? No. Guy, well, I know whose pizza that is. It's my friend's down the road. I'll show you where it is if you can give me a ride there. The conversation went on, but you get the idea. This guy was persistent. I eventually told him to get out of here, and I was calling the police. I closed the window and started dialing. As I was speaking to the police, he started yelling and banging on the window really hard. Thankfully, he eventually left, and the police came and searched him for a while I was delivering the pizza. Stuff like that happened every now and then, but despite most of it just being immature sexual harassment, I thankfully learned to be alert whilst on the job. I don't know what he wanted, but I'm glad I didn't find out. This happened to me when I was in my teens, around 16 or 17. Background: I live in the UK. At this age, I live in a pretty average area, but you only had to walk 20 minutes out, and you were in some pretty dodgy areas that were well known for their level of crime and general bad behavior. Myself and my friend of similar age, both females, we were walking to a park that is about 40 minutes away, to meet the rest of our friends, all the same age. To get to this park, we had to briefly dip into one of these bad areas, almost on the edge of the worst part of the estate. This was at around 6 p.m. and was during the lead up to winter, so it wasn't dark, but the streetlights were on, and it was coming into the evening. We were walking around a pathway with my friend on the normal side, on the outside by the bush, which continued into an open field/space, and me on the inside by the road, just a normal two-way flowing street. We were giggling away, obvious to almost everything a teen should be thinking about, when out of nowhere this black car, it was like an Astra, sped toward us from behind. Sound alerted us as the tires screeched toward us. As the car aligned with us, we were still walking. This guy is literally hanging out the passenger side window reaching for me. He's about 1 foot from actually touching me. But as I look up to see his face, he is wearing this terrifying mask. The ones with the huge animated smiles like out of The Purge, if anyone's seen that. I will attach a similar picture for reference. Once I finished screaming and managed to process what just happened, I just remembered grabbing my friend's arm and bolting into the field that was to the left of the entrance we had just reached. Probably wasn't the brightest idea, but I just wanted to get out of the way from the road. At that point, my flight had kicked in. It suddenly felt a lot darker with no lights in this open field. We stayed close to the bush where the path was on the other side, but we were crouching behind so they couldn't see us. It never actually stopped, it just slowed down, passing us, reached out, and sped off. But we could hear the revving and acceleration in the distance. We tried to calm each other down and eventually convinced each other that it was a stupid prank, and probably a young group of lads just out to scare people. After around 10 minutes, we decided to carry on heading towards our friends. You could walk through the field. It was, in fact, a shortcut, which we decided to take, as we were clearly not safer on the lit road. We made it to the rest of our friends safe, but 3 had already gone home, and the other 2 joined us. There was 4 altogether. The park was quite small, and there wasn't many people around, so we decided to go and get some cheesy chips, don't judge, from the chip shop about 5 minutes away. My friend and I were filling our friends about the masked man and the whole event. They were super freaked out. You could not make this up, right? We were about 30 minutes away from where it initially happened. You can guess what happened next. We were walking in pairs, small pathway, when again me and my friend hear the screeching of tires. We shot a look backwards, and sure as shit, there was the black Astra, or whatever it was, and a group of men in the car. I got a good look this time. It became clear they were men, not boys. They were all well built, tall, and the driver had a beard that was protruding from under his mask. I shouted to my friend to run as fast as they could to the chippy. I just knew this was more than a prank. We were running when the car aligned with us, and 2 men, one hanging out of the passenger window, the other out of the back passenger window, reaching out with their masks on and tried to grab the nearest to the road. All while there were men in the car were screaming this ridiculous laugh. They were all psychos laughing at our fear. There was no bushes to hide behind this time. We stopped to hopefully let the car pass so we could run across the road in time and straight for the chippy. It passed. We turned to run across. It stopped and started reversing towards us at high speeds. WTF. It missed us by inches. I just remember running for my life, feeling like these men were really out to do damage at this point. I didn't look back until we reached the chip shop. All 4 of us made it. From here, we all rang our parents in hysterics, telling them what had just happened. All the while, this black car still sat in view, revving the engine. At this point, all of them had their masks on, just slowly tilting their heads side to side, showing off the huge grins on their masks. They were waiting for us to leave the chip shop. We explained it to the guys behind the counter, and they told us to wait for our parents, and our parents arrived full of wise words. After about 5 minutes, the car sped off, and our parents arrived full of wise words and reassurance. I don't know what they were doing, whether they were just out to scare us or actually hurt us. The reversing suggests the latter. I don't know why they chose us, and I also don't know if they terrified other people that night too. I just won't ever forget the masks and the Moses laughing and chasing. Vile, vile men. Go and get some medical attention. I do not want to meet you again. I'm 22, and this incident happened a year and a half ago. I had just moved into my first apartment and was in the process of moving in. The door that led into my apartment locks itself automatically when closed, so I was going to the entrance of the apartment complex to get my mail while talking on the phone with my boyfriend. I returned to my apartment and sat on the bed while opening the mail while using the phone. I dropped the phone on the floor and it landed under my bed, so I had to lie on the floor and stretch out for it. I saw something that caught my eye. There was someone under my bed. My eyes widened and I choked the urge to scream. The person under my bed was lying still with his back towards me and his head to his chest, so I couldn't see his face, and he didn't see me. Trying to be rational while so many thoughts rushed through my head, I picked up the phone, said, "Sorry, I dropped my phone. I'm gonna take a shower and call you back." The bathroom is right by my bed, so I hastily walk in, quietly locked the door, turned the shower on, jumped out my window — my apartment is on the first floor — and I called the police. They told me to wait nearby, but to go across the street and see if anyone comes out the door to the apartment complex. This was during the summer and it was still light out. I placed myself across the street, hiding behind a car while watching my open bathroom window and the entry door. I called my boyfriend and he came to meet me before the police. I gave them my keys and they went inside. Only moments later, 2 cops came out holding a thin and tired-looking man. His eyes looked crazy, but he didn't try to get away. The policeman that had stood beside me and comforted me while the police searched my house — I was a mess, shivering and crying — told me that the man stood outside my bathroom door with one of my kitchen knives, waiting for me to come out. This man somehow crept into my entry door while I was getting my mail and hid under my bed. The man that was trying to hurt me turned out to be a homeless person and was placed in a mental hospital. My boyfriend moved in with me the very next day. Tensions were high around our apartment complex when I was around age 10. In a month's time, we had a man that committed suicide in a unit, a partial fire in a building leading to reconstruction, and a child that had been hit by a car who later survived. Even at a younger age, I remember distinctly having a strong grasp on the bizarre events that were taking place. It had to be around spring in 1997. My mother was single and raising my little sister, about 5 years old, and I. She managed a different complex and would pick us up from school and drop us off at our apartment while she returned to work for a couple more hours. I have 3 older siblings that at some point had to keep an eye on each other at a young age, so this really wasn't a new premise. There was no money for a sitter. The eldest just had to assume the role, which was me. For the most part, we were really quiet kids in our 2nd and 3rd story unit. We played with our toys, watched a little television, and sometimes we played Sega or Nintendo. On this particular afternoon, I recall playing with a Dash Render figure from Star Wars, while my sister was doing whatever in the same living room. Suddenly, the doorknob started violently shaking. My heart dropped, and I remember it being the first time I had felt such terror. I rushed to the phone and paged my mom, 911, and then dialed 911 to let the operator know that someone was breaking in. The operator reassured me that help was on the way. The door handle was still being messed with, but I was nervous if the deadbolt and chain would be enough. A couple loud bangs happened, as if someone was ramming the door with their shoulder. Then it all stopped. The cops arrived shortly before my mom, only to find a note from the maintenance man saying something like, "Air filter check." Now, the maintenance man had claimed that he announced himself verbally, but I knew it was bullshit. Of course, the cops did nothing, and my mom's complaint to the office didn't yield this man being fired. Unfortunately, this wouldn't be the most unnerving part of the story. My mom said the guy would stare her down in the parking lot and just smile at her. The whole situation creeped us out, and we wanted to move, but we couldn't afford the expenses. One night, a couple of weeks later, I was awakened by a loud thud coming from the roof. Being so easily rattled from the previous events, I ran to my mom's room to wake her. She checked around to make sure everything was in place and reassured me that it was probably a rodent. We went to school the next morning, and we were dropped off at home in the afternoon as usual. My mother usually did a quick sweep of the place, even before the attempted break-in. But this time, something seemed off. It was just a very uneasy feeling the apartment had when walking in. My sister and I were ordered to stay downstairs by the front door while she investigated upstairs. We waited patiently and felt very unnerved when suddenly our mother's shrieking confirmed our suspicion. She came barreling down the stairs and ushered us out the door. We went to the neighbors and phoned the police. My mother was barking at them. "Someone is in our apartment." The police responded pretty quickly, and I was finally able to understand the situation. The bedroom had a walk-in closet that contained the hatch to the attic that my mother walked in to find a dirty pair of men's tighty-whities underwear lying on the floor. This was enough to send her running and phoning the police. However, the investigation revealed something more. The attic hatch had been disturbed. Just to add, the police found full handprints on the shelves in the closet. The noises I heard the previous night were more than likely this man hoisting himself back up into the crawl space using the shelves to climb on after visiting us. The man was taken into custody, but I don't recall what the sentencing was. I need to look into it. Coincidentally, my older brother is now a homicide detective for that area. We ended up moving into my grandmother's house shortly after.